Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea takes delivery of its first batch of the vaccine made by Pfizer, with inoculations due to start tomorrow. Around 5,000 doses of the AstraZeneca jab are being administered today as rollout officially begins. The South Korean health authorities decide to extend the current level of social distancing by another 2 weeks. That means there'll still be a ban on gatherings of 5 or more people, and businesses have to limit their hours. And stock markets plunge around the world on growing fears of inflation to come in the U.S. South Korea's benchmark index, the Kospi, down 2.8%. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea has taken delivery of its first batch of the COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer and BioNTech. It arrived today and has been transported to 5 medical centers across the country. Arirang's Jang Tae-hyun is standing by at the National Medical Center in Seoul to tell us how things are going. So Tae-hyun, inoculations have begun with the AstraZeneca vaccine today, but do we have a schedule yet for the Pfizer vaccine?
Hello, Devin. Starting on Saturday, medical staffs who are taking care of COVID-19 patients will be getting the Pfizer's vaccine. Around 55,000 people have agreed to be vaccinated. Tomorrow, 300 medical workers will get the shot at the National Medical Center in Seoul. 199 staff working at that hospital and 101 from other COVID-19 treatment facilities in the capital region are the first to get the Pfizer vaccine. Through the COVAX facility, 117,000 doses of the vaccine have arrived. Since people need 2 shots each, the batch will be enough for 58,500 people. This batch coming through the COVAX facility is not part of the 13 million Pfizer vaccines that South Korea is buying directly from the company. That's all I have for now, and back to you.
All right, Jang Tae-hyun reporting there at the National Medical Center in Seoul. Thank you for that, Tae-hyun. And it was a little before 9 a.m. Korea time today that South Korea gave its first vaccine dose. The first person was a 61-year-old care worker at a nursing home. Kim Sang-min reports.
It was 8:43 a.m. on February 26. With a slightly tense face, the nurse at the Nowon-gu District Healthcare took the vaccine out of the fridge. It was the first of around 1.57 million vaccine doses that are being given out in the country's first round of inoculations. The vaccine is carefully drawn into a syringe, and 2 minutes later, the very first shot in South Korea's vaccine program going into 61-year-old Lee Kyung-soon's arm. Lee, a care worker from the Sangye nursing home, became the country's unofficial first recipient as the center started its vaccinations a little bit earlier than the 9 a.m. nationwide start time. For her, it was a dose of relief.
Frankly speaking, it's been a very nerve-wracking year. But now that I've been vaccinated, I feel relieved, and I thank the government, the district office, and the health center for their efforts to make this happen.
After the shots, all recipients are informed of what precautions they need to take. They will remain at the vaccination spot for 15 to 30 minutes to make sure they don't have any severe allergic reactions. About 1.57 million vaccine doses, enough to inoculate 785,000 people, are being delivered across the country to be dispensed in the coming weeks. The first in line are the residents and workers of nursing care and rehabilitation centers aged under 65. More than 90% of them have signed up for the jab and are part of a new chapter in the country's battle against the COVID-19 pandemic. Kim Sang-min, Arirang News.
And as the first doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were administered this morning, President Moon Jae-in went to a public health clinic in Seoul to observe the process and to see the first dose given there. The Blue House says President Moon's visit was aimed at encouraging medical workers and reminding the public to get the shot when they can. Kim Min-ji with the details.
President Moon Jae-in visited a public health center in Mapogu district in Seoul to check out the first inoculations as the nation kicked off its vaccination program on Friday. The first recipient there was 60-year-old Kim Yoon-tae, a doctor and head of the Purame Foundation Nexon Children's Rehabilitation Hospital in the district.
역사적인 1호 접종이신데 접종하는 것 좀 지켜봐도 되겠습니까? 예, 영광입니다.
Kim was required to fill out a questionnaire in advance and received a preliminary checkup on his health to make sure he was fit for the vaccine. After he was vaccinated, President Moon accompanied him while he waited for about 15 minutes in case of any adverse effects.
이상이 없으면 다시 이제 2차 접종을 받으시게 될 텐데 언제 이제 받으시게 될지 조금 안내를 받았습니까?
예, 알고 있습니다. 맞고 나서 8주에서 12주 사이에 날짜 정해서 2차 접종을 하게 돼 있죠.
의사 선생님이신데
네네.
일반 국민들 사이에서는 지금 우리나라에서는 처음 들어오는 백신이기 때문에
네네.
아무래도 좀 불안감이 좀 있는 게 사실이거든요.
네네.
한 말씀 좀 해주신다면.
예, 저는 이미 전 세계적으로 수억 명이나 백신을 하고 있는 상황이고, 특히 오늘 맞는 주사제도 수천만 명이 맞은 이미. 그러니까 안전성이나 효과성은 이미 검증돼 있다고 생각을 하는 바고요. 맞고 나서 방심하면 안 된다. 방역 지침 여태까지 지키던 대로 그대로 지켜야 된다. 왜냐하면 나는 안 걸려도 내 손과 내 코에서 또 균이 다른 사람한테 옮아가는 거는 똑같은 현상이기 때문에.
President Moon was also briefed on the country's overall inoculation plan by Chung Eun-kyung, the commissioner of the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency. He asked how staff would handle unexpected situations, such as recipients feeling ill before or after they get their shots. Moon also asked when his turn would be. Moon has said that he will get vaccinated to set an example if there is excessive public anxiety. The top office said that it's yet to be decided when the president's turn will be. President Moon called on the health authorities to ensure safe vaccinations, noting that the focus now will be whether recipients show any adverse effects. He pointed out the need to ease public concern and to encourage people to take part in the campaign to swiftly normalize everyday life. 김민지, 아리랑 뉴스.
And South Korea has decided to extend the current social distancing measures for 2 more weeks. The ban on gatherings of 5 or more people will also be in place for that time. Next week, though, the authorities have reaffirmed that Korea's grade schools will start their new semester as planned. Kim Jae-hee has the latest.
The South Korean government has decided to extend the current social distancing guidelines by 2 more weeks. With the latest extension, the Greater Seoul area will be under Level 2 social distancing measures, the 3rd highest in the 5-tier system, and the rest of the country under Level 1.5 measures until March 14th. And with much disappointment from small business owners, the government also decided to extend the ban on gatherings of 5 or more people and the restrictions on business operating hours for 2 more weeks.
The reproduction rate has exceeded 1 for 2 consecutive weeks, and an increase in outdoor activities as the new spring semester begins is also a risk factor. Coronavirus variants are also cause for concern. The vaccine rollout has begun in the country, but we have to go a long way to achieve herd immunity.
Chung also expressed concerns, saying if infections surge before the majority of people are vaccinated, the country may face a shortage of healthcare resources. The health authorities warned on Friday that it will respond firmly to anyone not following the distancing measures.
Business owners that have failed to follow social distancing regulations will face disadvantages regarding government support funds, such as emergency disaster relief funds.
But health authorities noted the opening of elementary, middle, and high schools and kindergartens will happen as planned on March 2nd, following the guidelines from the Ministry of Education. Meanwhile, South Korea reported 406 new cases on Friday, slight more than the 396 reported the previous day. Of the daily new cases, 382 were locally transmitted and 24 were from overseas. Most of the recent infections were from the Greater Seoul area. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motors' new all-electric vehicle, the IONIQ 5, has broken Hyundai's sales record for day one pre-orders. The IONIQ 5 is the first vehicle to use Hyundai's own electric vehicle platform. According to industry sources, pre-orders on Tuesday, the first day, came to around 25,000 units, almost reaching this year's annual sales target of 26,500. For Hyundai Kia Motor Group, the previous record for day one pre-orders was set by the Carnival minivan released last August. South Korean tech giant Kakao has announced plans to split its stock 5-for-1. The price is currently around $430 a share, so at that level, the price would come down to around $85. The company said it wants the split to make its shares accessible to more investors. The decision will be put to a shareholders' vote next month. If approved, the split will happen in mid-April. So far this year, Kakao's stock is up around 21%, and from a year ago, it's up more than 150%. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, Global Strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for making time today.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, Jerome Powell's been reassuring the world that they're going to stick with an easy money policy, but still a surge in Treasury yields spooked investors on Thursday, sending stocks sharply lower. On the NASDAQ, it was the biggest drop since last October. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, Dow Jones was quite significantly down by 1.8%. S&P 500 sank about 2.5%, and particularly the interest rate sensitive NASDAQ was down by 3.5%. It is the worst declining since October of last year. As you said, the main reason for this kind of correction is because of the 10-year government yield, Treasury yield, has surged significantly for U.S., and it has hit well above 1.5% level, as high as 1.6%. Now has corrected a little bit, but still nevertheless right around 1.5%. I think that people are concerned about this number will go up even further with the economic recovery that is expected, and also $1.9 trillion of the boosting measures, the budget improvement in terms of the U.S. government. And if that's the case, then economic growth rate could quite significantly recover this year. And also various cost level is rising because of the overall oil price rising and various other raw materials rising. And that's the main reason for the expected rise in interest rate. And this is all affecting quite negatively for overall U.S. market. And it seems that it's actually having trigger effect to most of other countries as well.
Well, Korean shares taking a big hit today, too, giving up most of yesterday's big gain. Strong buying from retail investors, but foreigners and institutions selling. Tell us about the local markets.
Right. Right around 3,000 level of Kospi. Kospi seems to be quite volatile. If you look at yesterday, it was up 3.5%, and today it's almost down by 3%. So it's quite volatile right around 3,000 level. Main reason for that is because U.S. market suffering quite significantly, particularly the NASDAQ down 3.5%, affecting negatively, and higher interest rate environment in U.S. does affect also the same level of rising trend for the Korean government bond rate as well. However, though, if you look at the Bank of Korea, they have kept its base rate unchanged at a record low level of 0.5%. And overall economic growth rate-wise, we are expecting quite significant improvement in this quarter because of the huge improvement in export, particularly in the semiconductor industry. And also, auto industry is actually doing quite well as well. And with the oil price rising, any export related to the oil price, petrochemical side is also going to do well. So all in all, we do expect the Korean companies' earnings improvement will be one of the most significant one compared to any other countries. And this is the reason why the recent correction will be just a short-term relative volatility rather than a long-term trend.
Well, you alluded to rates rising in Korea, which, like the U.S., many believe that's inevitable given all that's happened in the past year. But what do rising rates mean for the Korean economy, and what kind of response do we need?
Right. In terms of the rising interest rate, I think that the key concern is what's happening to the inflation. And we think that the inflationary pressure is not going to be that significant despite all these boosting measures that you are seeing. Number one, you continue to see the untaxed businesses flourishing, lowering the overall sales prices. And also, if you look at the labor market, the improvement level is quite timid. And due to that, the demand pulled inflation is probably unlikely. Right now, inflation numbers are going up because of the cost push inflation, raw material costs rising. But we don't think that that will last for very long unless there is a huge demand pickup. But because the labor market is still timid, we don't think that that's going to be the case. And that applies to not just the U.S., but also Korea. All in all, we don't think the inflation pressure is going to be so significant that interest rate will rise even more faster than what we've seen in the last 6 months. We think that the gradual rise to so-called 2% target inflation numbers will be most likely, and therefore the interest rate will probably go towards that number of 2%, but it will take quite some period of time, and government will do quite a lot of measures to make sure that the interest rate environment remains low.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us today, and as always, have a great weekend.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.